Let me ask you something. How many times have you replayed someone's words in your head again and again and again? They spoke once, but you suffered 100 times. And the strange part is, the person you're thinking about is probably sleeping peacefully, friends. We don't get tired because life is difficult. We get tired because our mind refuses to stop. We think too much about what people said, what they meant, why they didn't reply, why they changed, why we weren't enough. And slowly, without realizing it, we hand over the remote control of our happiness to other people. Today, I want to talk about one silent habit that looks harmless, but slowly steals your peace. Thinking too much about people and why it hurts you more than you imagine, friends. Let me tell you something very important. Your mind is not empty land, it is valuable property. But what do? We allow anyone to walk in, sit comfortably, and rearrange the furniture of our thoughts. Someone makes one comment, and they move into your mind rent-free. They speak for 5 seconds, and you think about it for 5 nights. Ask yourself, did they ask permission before entering my thoughts? No. Did they earn this much importance in my life? Most of the time, no. Yet, we give them a very important person's seat inside our head. Friends, imagine this. If someone enters your house without knocking, opens your cupboard and refuses to leave, you would call it trespassing. But when someone does the same thing in your mind, we call it thinking, we call it caring, we call it being emotional. No, it is mental trespassing. Not everyone who crosses your path deserves to live in your thoughts. Some people are visitors, but we turn them into permanent residents. And slowly, your own thoughts no longer have space to breathe. You try to relax, but their words echo. You try to focus, but their behavior replays. You try to sleep, but your mind says, what if? Friends, the mind works like a room. If the room is cluttered, even fresh air feels heavy. When you fill your mind with people who don't value you, you leave no space for peace. Here is the hard truth. Not everyone who talks sweetly cares deeply. Not everyone who stays close deserves closeness. Some people are only meant to be understood, not entertained by your thoughts. You don't need to hate them. You don't need to fight them. You just need to limit their access. Because the most dangerous thing is not people hurting you. It is you replaying their hurt again and again. Friends, your energy is limited. Your attention is precious. Your peace is fragile. Give it only to those who respect it. The day you realize that not everyone deserves so much space in your mind, that day, your mind becomes lighter, your heart becomes calmer, and your life becomes simpler. Remember, you cannot stop people from entering your life, but you can always decide how long they stay in your thoughts. Friends, let us talk honestly. When we think too much, we believe we are solving something. We believe the mind is working hard to protect us. But most of the time, it is not protection, it is punishment. Nobody is standing in front of you blaming you. Nobody is asking you questions, yet inside your own mind, you become the judge, the lawyer, and the criminal. You replay the same moment again and again. You pause it, you rewind it, you change the dialogues, you imagine better replies, you imagine worse outcomes, and every replay hurts the same, sometimes even more. Friends, understand this. Thinking has a purpose, but overthinking has none. When you think, you move forward. When you overthink, you stay stuck, but exhausted. You sit quietly, but your mind is running a marathon. Your body is resting, but your heart feels tired. This is why overthinking drains you. Not because the problem is big, but because you keep reliving it. The event happened once, but in your head, it happens again and again, with new pain added every time. Ask yourself, has overthinking ever truly fixed the past? Has it ever changed someone's behavior? Has it ever brought peace? No, yet we continue, because the mind is addicted to control. It believes that if it thinks enough, it can prevent future pain. But friends, this control is an illusion. Overthinking does not prepare you, it scares you, it does not protect you, it paralyzes you. And slowly, you start hurting yourself for mistakes that are already gone, for conversations that are already over, for people who may not even remember what they said. This is self-punishment. You punish yourself for being emotional. You punish yourself for trusting. You punish yourself for expecting. But tell me, is being human a crime? Sometimes the mind keeps asking why, when the heart only needs rest. Sometimes the answer is not clarity. The answer is acceptance. Friends, peace does not come when you finally understand everything. Peace comes when you stop demanding that everything makes sense. The moment you realize that overthinking is not wisdom but self-harm, you stop being cruel to yourself, you forgive yourself, you release the loop, you choose silence over noise, and that decision, that gentle decision, is the beginning of healing. Friends, this point is one of the hardest truths to accept and one of the most freeing. We spend so much time asking, why did they change? Why are they behaving like this with me? What did I do wrong? And slowly, without realizing it, every question turns into a silent accusation against yourself. But let me say this gently. Not everything is about you. People change for many reasons. Sometimes they are tired, sometimes they are confused, sometimes they are fighting battles they don't know how to explain, and sometimes they are simply growing in a different direction. Friends, imagine a river. It flows beautifully with you for some distance. Then suddenly it turns, not because you were wrong, but because that is how rivers are meant to move. When someone changes, our ego immediately whispers, you were not enough, but the truth is, you may have been more than enough for the person they were, just not for the person they became. And that is painful, but it is not personal. We forget that people are human, not statues. They evolve, they break, they rebuild, they get scared, they get distracted. Sometimes they don't know how to communicate their inner chaos, so it comes out as distance, silence, or coldness, and we take that silence and turn it into a story about our worth. Friends, another hard truth. People treat you based on what is happening inside them, not always on what you deserve. A person who is unhappy with themselves will struggle to show up for others. A person who is confused will give mixed signals. A person who is hurting may unintentionally hurt you. It doesn't mean your value decreased. It means their capacity changed. But here is where we suffer. We try to force consistency from people who are still figuring themselves out. We keep expecting the old version of them to return. We wait, we hope, we overthink. Friends, waiting for someone to become who they used to be is like waiting for yesterday to come back. Growth does not always move together. Sometimes two people walk together for years, and then one takes a turn. The other cannot follow. And that is not betrayal. That is life. When you stop personalizing every change, your heart becomes lighter. You stop asking, what is wrong with me? And start asking, what is happening with them? That shift alone brings peace. You don't need to hate them. You don't need to blame yourself. You simply need to understand. Some people are not meant to stay the same, and you are not meant to suffer because of it. The day you realize that people changing is not always your fault is the day you reclaim your self-respect and your peace. Friends, this point sounds simple, but living it is one of the hardest things in life. We say we don't care about opinions, but deep inside, one sentence from someone can disturb our entire day. A single comment, a small reaction, a look, and suddenly your inner peace is gone. Ask yourself honestly, how expensive is your peace? Because every time you allow someone's opinion to control your emotions, you are paying for it, and the price is high. You pay with your sleep, you pay with your focus, you pay with your smile, you pay with your energy. Friends, understand this. Opinions are free. That is why everyone gives them. But your peace is rare. It is built slowly, through understanding, through acceptance, through self-respect. So why exchange something priceless for something so cheap? Most opinions are not facts. They are reflections. Reflections of someone's mood, their upbringing, their fears, their past. When someone judges you, they are not reading your entire story. They are reading one page and writing a conclusion. And we suffer because we treat that conclusion like a final verdict. Friends, you don't need everyone to understand you. You don't need everyone to approve of your choices. Even the sun, which gives life to the entire planet, is disliked by some people. So how can you expect universal acceptance? The need for approval slowly turns into a prison. You start editing yourself. You start explaining yourself. You start apologizing for being who you are. And the more you explain, the more power you give away. Peace is not found in convincing others. Peace is found in standing calmly in your truth. Sometimes silence is not weakness, it is self-respect. You don't owe everyone a justification for your decisions. You don't owe everyone access to your inner world. Friends, the strongest people are not those who win arguments. They are those who protect their peace. They know when to speak. They know when to step back. They know when an opinion is not worth a disturbance. The moment you realize that your peace is more valuable than being understood by everyone, you stop reacting, you stop over-explaining, and you start living. And that calm, that quiet confidence is true strength. Friends, this point often confuses us because it looks so similar on the surface. We tell ourselves, I think so much because I care. I replay everything because they matter to me. I cannot stop thinking because I am emotionally invested. But let me say this gently. Thinking too much does not mean you care more. It often means you are hurting more. Real care is calm. It is steady. It knows when to act and when to pause. Overthinking, on the other hand, is restless. It has no off switch. It keeps asking questions even when there are no answers. Friends, look at the difference. When you truly care, you communicate, you listen, you respond with clarity. But when you overthink, you assume, you imagine, you fight battles that never even happened. Care brings closeness. Overthinking creates distance inside your own mind. We believe that by thinking constantly, we are being responsible, loving, or loyal. But what we are actually doing is exhausting ourselves emotionally. Ask yourself honestly, has your overthinking ever made a relationship healthier, or has it only made you anxious? Caring has boundaries. It knows when to say, I have done my part. Overthinking has none. It keeps whispering, do more, think more, worry more. Friends, love does not demand self-destruction. If caring costs you your peace, your sleep, your self-respect, then it is no longer care, it is self-neglect. Sometimes we confuse attachment with love. Attachment says, I cannot be okay unless you act a certain way. Care says, I wish you well, but I will not abandon myself. When you care deeply, you trust, you allow space, you accept uncertainty. Overthinking tries to control outcomes because it is afraid of pain, but fear is not love. Real care allows silence, without panic, distance, without insecurity, change, without collapse. Friends, the moment you understand that caring does not require constant mental noise, you give yourself permission to rest. You stop proving your emotions. You stop measuring your value through someone else's behavior. And that is maturity. Care is quiet. Care is kind. Care protects both people involved. Overthinking only protects fear. Choose care, release overthinking, and watch how light your heart begins to feel. Friends, this is one of the most subtle traps of the mind, and it affects us in ways we often don't even notice. The mind, our beautiful mind, was created to help us survive. It observes, analyzes, remembers, and predicts. It keeps us safe, prepares us for challenges, and helps us make decisions. But the mind also has a weakness. It loves assumptions more than truth. Think about it. We rarely know the full story. Rarely do we have all the facts. And yet, our mind jumps in and creates an entire movie. Someone doesn't reply to your message. The mind immediately imagines why. Maybe they are ignoring you. Maybe they are upset. Maybe they don't value you. You create scenarios, some believable, some exaggerated, all in the pursuit of understanding. And here's the tricky part. The mind feels very confident in these assumptions. It whispers, I know why they did this. I can predict what they are thinking. I understand their motives. But friends, most of the time, we are wrong. We interpret silence as rejection. We interpret a look as criticism. We interpret distance as dislike. And slowly, we begin to live inside our assumptions rather than reality. The mind loves assumptions because assumptions are quick. They provide answers immediately. They make us feel in control. We tell ourselves, if I understand this, I can prepare for it. But the truth is, assumptions are illusions of control. They are stories our mind writes to make sense of uncertainty. They are like shadows. They look real, but they have no substance. And the danger is immense, because the more we trust assumptions, the more we react emotionally to something that may not even exist. We get hurt. We get angry. We feel rejected. All because of something we imagined. Friends, overthinking, and assumptions are close relatives. The mind tries to protect us from pain, but it creates pain instead. And the more we replay these assumptions, the more they solidify into beliefs. We start to say, that's just how they are. They must feel this way about me. I will never be valued by them. All built on a story that isn't true. This is why it is so important to pause and question your thoughts. Ask yourself, do I know this as a fact, or am I assuming it? The mind will resist this at first. It will argue. It will try to convince you that your assumptions are reality. But with practice, you can learn to distinguish fact from STO. Truth from illusion. Friends, peace begins when you stop trusting assumptions. Clarity begins when you stop believing every thought your mind generates. Your happiness begins when you stop living in a world created by what ifs and maybes. Remember, the mind is a tool, not a master. Do not let imagined reasons steal your sleep, your energy, your joy. Instead, let reality guide your emotions. Let patience guide your heart. Let understanding guide your relationships. Because when you stop letting assumptions dictate your life, you step into freedom. Friends, this is one of the most powerful truths that many of us struggle to accept. We live in a world where we are taught to hold on to relationships, hold on to people, hold on to expectations, hold on to the past. But the truth is, sometimes letting go is the only way to grow. We think holding tighter means love, loyalty, or commitment, but in reality, holding tighter can be like gripping sand in your fist. The more you hold, the more it slips away, and the harder you hurt yourself. Friends, not every connection, not every relationship, not every situation is meant to stay the same forever. Some people come into your life as lessons, not lifelong companions. Some experiences are meant to teach you something about yourself and then move on. The mind resists this. It wants permanence. It wants certainty. It wants guarantees. It keeps asking, why did they change? Why did it end? Why can't it be the way it used to be? But growth, real growth, does not always move together. Sometimes one person evolves faster. Sometimes paths diverge naturally. And resisting this flow only causes suffering. Friends, holding on when it is time to let go creates unnecessary pain. It fills your mind with questions, doubts, and regrets.